Penelope's brother asks the girl if she knows the man who pestered her, to which he receives a negative answer. The fair-haired man says displeasedly that he still had to teach that man a lesson. These words make Ruia laugh joyfully. Ferian does not understand the reason for the laughter, since the red-haired one almost got into trouble. To calm the young man, Ruia gently presses herself against him. From such words, the fair-haired man's cheeks become covered with a bright blush. The girl says that when she was very frightened by the actions of the stranger, she mentally called Ferian. The young man is embarrassed, saying that his appearance is just a coincidence. Ruia thanks for such a lucky coincidence for her. After this, the red-haired girl flirtatiously asks Ferian what he meant when he said that they were dating. The girl notices embarrassment on the fair-haired man's face and begins to tease him about it. Ferian says threateningly that now the girl will walk on her own 2 feet if she doesn't calm down. Penelope runs through Cupid Park, thinking that she spent much more time changing clothes than she wanted. The main character is worriedly wondering whether her friend has met Ferian. However, the girl quickly drives these thoughts away from herself, realizing that now she should think about something else. Penelope looks around and notices that only couples are walking in the park. The blonde wonders if she really ended up in a park and not a motel. In the heroine's thoughts, the image of Bath emerges, who tenderly kissed her hand, offering to start dating for real. The girl silently scolds the emperor for knowing how to make her heart tremble. Suddenly, the flow of thoughts is interrupted by an obstacle standing in front of Penelope in the form of someone's back. The blonde one hits her nose and immediately apologizes, saying she was lost in thought. The man with dark hair and scarlet eyes also apologizes for his inattention. Penelope looks intensely at the stranger, thinking that she likes his appearance, but his character is a little harsh and repulsive. The young man asks the heroine to be careful next time. The man starts to walk away, but Pepe asks him to stop. The Baron's daughter begins to quickly look for something in her bag. The black-haired man begins to get angry with the girl, not understanding why she stopped him in vain. A happy smile appears on Penelope's face, and she asks the man to extend his hands forward. When the stranger doesn't do this, the main character loudly tells him to do it quickly because she doesn't want to be late for her meeting. Because of such pressure, the black-haired man unconsciously does as he was asked. A handful of small sweets are dropped into the man's palm. Penelope explains that young people often don't have enough sugar these days, so it needs to be increased. The black-haired man is already starting to say that he hates sweets, but for some reason he stops. A joyful girl looks at the man and says that good nutrition is the best medicine. After this, the heroine turns around, smiling contentedly. The young man looks at his palms in bewilderment, thinking that he has met a really strange girl. The blonde walks along the road that leads through the fields and looks around, trying to figure out where to look for the emperor. The next moment, Penelope screams in surprise as a snow-white bird flies out at her. When the bird flies away, the Baron's disheveled daughter exhales with relief. The heroine turns her gaze to the gazebo, near which His Majesty stands, looking into the distance. Penelope first wants to call out to Bath, but abruptly stops herself. The girl will think about why the emperor looks as if he has been waiting for someone for 100 years. The blonde woman approaches the man, and he says that he was a little worried because he spontaneously changed the meeting place. His Majesty takes the main character's hand and asks her to close her eyes for a while. Penelope closes her eyes, thinking that the emperor wants to kiss her. When Bath allows the girl to open her eyes, the heroine sees a field in front of her, illuminated by fireflies. The blonde girl looks at the surprise with fascination, saying that she has never seen such beauty in her life. Silver-haired shyly says that Penelope is much more beautiful. The girl looks away, thinking that the man is too straightforward. Bat tells Pepe that fireflies glow to find their mate, especially males trying to attract females. Blonde says that there are not many differences between the lives of people and fireflies. The emperor agrees, but says that fireflies live only 10 days, and in such a short time, they need to find love. The man says that these creatures are amazing because they are capable of loving throughout life. And people look forward to meeting someone who will one day find their own life. Looking at the blonde, Bat says that he was able to see that same light. His Majesty excitedly asks the main character if she feels his light. At this moment, Penelope reflects that although she is surrounded by an incredibly beautiful landscape, her attention is focused only on the Emperor. The blonde girl takes Bath's hand, wanting to stay with his light forever. The silver-haired man gently touches the girl's cheek, saying that he likes her more and more. The man begins to approach the face of the Baron's daughter. Understanding what the Emperor wants, Penelope apologizes, moving away from him. The main character is embarrassed by the Emperor's actions and feels that every time he is around, she constantly wants to leave. Despite the refusal, Bat tenderly hugs the girl. On her cheek, Penelope feels the barely perceptible touch of His Majesty's lips. The man asks the fair-haired woman for permission to at least do such actions. The Baron's daughter feels a little awkward that Bath wants to kiss her. However, after this, the main character smiles and decides that such feelings are not so bad. When the heroes leave that place, the fair-haired woman does not look in the Emperor's direction the whole way out of embarrassment. Noticing the girl's mood, Bat carefully takes her hand in his. His Majesty smiles and says that today it was the heroine who first took his hand. Penelope agrees, but says it was done on impulse. The silver-haired man asks the girl what caused this, to which she replies that the man looked very lonely. Pepe says that when she arrived, Bat was like a puppy waiting for its owner. The Emperor sighs, realizing that he will never be able to deceive the eyes of the main character. His Majesty tells Penelope that there is one place he wants to go with her. The man claims that if they go there, then the blonde will be able to get to know him better. Hearing Bath's words, the Baron's daughter immediately agrees to this proposal. The heroes come to a dark place, saturated with poverty and misery. Penelope is horrified by the sight of people here, since she did not even suspect that such a place existed near the capital. Bat calls out to the girl, asking her to follow him. Blonde enters a church that is being used as a relief center. His Majesty is greeted by an elderly man and asks the silver-haired man who is next to him. The Emperor calls Pepe a companion and asks the man about the situation. The older man replies that most patients are malnourished and are starting to run out of medications. The main character lures around and says that she is surrounded by empty, exhausted faces of groans and pain. The girl thought that their state had rich people, but now she understands that poverty and suffering are everywhere. The heroes climb the church tower. Penelope says that she did not know that such a place existed near the capital. The man says that there are people in the area who lost their homes after the war. 10 years after the war, most people are rich, but there are those who live penniless. The Emperor informs the blonde that they have already created 10 help centers, but there are not enough people and resources to correct the situation. Pepe realizes that when they skied down the slope together, His Majesty wanted to please the children from similar areas in the same way. The heroine asks why Bath doesn't ask the nobles for help, to which he replies that the nobles only do what benefits them. The nobles use power only to achieve their goals, which is why many projects to help the poor were not implemented. The silver-haired man shudders when he hears the unflattering words Penelope calls the higher ranks. Pepe is angry that politicians only care about tax money and that they only live well because of the people. Suddenly, the blonde realizes how she just spoke about the nobility in front of the Emperor, and therefore immediately falls silent. His Majesty smiles joyfully, saying that he was not mistaken. Bat reminds the heroine that he promised to tell how they first met. Pepe confirms this, but she feels embarrassed because she completely forgot about it. The man says that their first meeting happened 5 months ago in the library of the Imperial School. The Emperor, who has dyed his hair black, walks next to the stacks and asks Oliver how things are going with the library. The Duke replies that the number of readers has increased significantly, to which Bath says to increase the number of advertisements and make this place accessible to everyone in the Empire. His Majesty asks to increase the share of ordinary people by 5%, but Oliver hesitantly says that the nobles will not agree to this. Bath says that the nobles get more from the Empire, so it is necessary to provide the same opportunities to the commoners. Thanks to this, they will be able to prevent the occurrence of a war like that. The Duke sighs and agrees with His Majesty, saying that he will carry out his order. The man asks the Chancellor to hurry up and says that they have a check scheduled after this. Oliver sighs again doomedly, realizing that the Emperor is only thinking about work, even when it is time for him to go to a meeting with the Empress. Bath looks carefully at the shelves, thinking that the workers are doing a good job sorting the books. Suddenly the man's gaze stops at a blonde girl standing by the window, reading a book. A bright smile and slightly flushed cheeks adorn the heroine's face. Suddenly the girl's face freezes in a shocked and incomprehensible state. However, the next moment, everything returns to its previous state, and the Emperor begins to think that he was imagining it. The man's doubts are dispelled a second later, when the blonde again shows her emotions. His Majesty quietly laughs at this change of mood and begins to wonder what makes her react this way. Oliver, noticing the Emperor's interest, says that the girl is Lady Zicalian. When the Duke claims that the lady is quite famous, Bath says that this is the first he has heard of her. The Chancellor quietly explains to the ruler that Penelope is famous for having once attacked a nobleman during an event. His Majesty confidently says that there was a reason for this, since the nobleman, who values his honor, did not sue her. Having heard a logical explanation, Oliver agrees with the Emperor's words. Taking one last look at the blonde, the man continues to explore the library. When Bath and the Duke returned to the library for inspection, they heard someone scream. The guard at the entrance tells the elderly commoner that he cannot enter, but he shouts that the library is open to everyone in the empire. The audience, consisting of nobles, begins to laugh at the old man because of his appearance. The Emperor looks irritated at the guard who is not following his orders. Penelope stands next to His Majesty and displeasedly says that he has no right to shout at an elderly man. Oliver tells Bath that he will prepare the documents later, as they are currently doing the verification. The blonde woman approaches the man and he apologizes for the inconvenience, saying that he will quickly deal with the commoner. Pepe throws the old man's bag over his shoulder and pulls him by the hand into the library, saying that she will sort it out herself. The Emperor looks at the girl in disbelief, amazed at her actions. The guard tries to reason with the Baron's daughter, reminding her of the behavior of a commoner. However, the heroine interrupts the man, saying that according to the Emperor's decree to allow everyone into this place, he has no right to kick out the old man. The girl asks the guard what could be more important to him than the imperial order. Realizing his mistake, the man bows, allowing the older man to enter. The old man thanks the blonde, to which she asks him next time not to bring so many things with him and to work on his etiquette. The Emperor looks at the girl in fascination, and a slight blush can be seen on his cheeks. Hearing His Majesty's story, Penelope blushes, surprised that he came to such a place. Bath says that Pepe is very caring towards the weak and has an unwavering belief in what she believes is right. The Emperor crosses his fingers with the main character and claims that he knew from the very beginning that she would share his views. The Baron's daughter looks away in embarrassment, saying that she doesn't consider herself amazing. The ruler says that he not only wants Penelope to become Empress, but also wants to be real with her. Bat says that every time he closes his eyes, he sees not only Labat's victory, but also a huge number of people killed. Since the war ended, the man has not been able to sleep properly for a single day. However, His Majesty says that he slept peacefully only once, namely on the night he spent with Penelope. As an emperor, Bat told a lot, but after he met the heroine, he finally understood his happiness. Silverhaired claims that he is not as strong as he seems, so he asks the girl for help. Pepe looks into the ruler's eyes, thinking that such an ideal person has his weaknesses. The blonde hugs the man, wanting to show that she is on his side. Jewel clutches the letter in her hands, angry that her ally made a mistake. The girl bites her nail, thinking that now she will have to take everything into her own hands. Someone behind the black-haired woman tells her that she still has this terrible habit. When Jewel turns towards the stranger, he sees in front of him a man with hair as black as pitch. The man who enters grins and greets the girl, calling her sister. The black-haired woman says her brother's name, Wilson, with horror in her voice. The emperor sits calmly at his morning meal, enjoying the taste of a juicy steak. After the main course, Oliver serves His Majesty tea. The Chancellor looks at the silver-haired man in amazement, surprised that before he always ate only eggs for breakfast and drank black tea. The Duke happily tells Bath that he has developed an appetite lately. Having guessed the reason for such changes, Oliver asks the Emperor if anything good happened on their date the day before yesterday. His Majesty smiles, remembering that very night when the blonde woman tenderly embraced the man on the church tower. Realizing that he is right, the Chancellor smiles knowingly. Bath warns Oliver that he and Penelope will soon have a ceremony. The Duke is amazed and asks if the lady has given her consent, to which the Emperor answers in the negative, but he will not marry anyone other than her. Oliver worriedly asks to reconsider His Majesty's wedding with the Baron's daughter. Bath asks in bewilderment what Chancellor Vata means. The man says that if Penelope becomes Empress, there will be unrest among aristocrats. However, it is not only the nobles, but also the fact that His Majesty sent Princess Jewel away, thereby worsening relations with Turan. And in such a situation, Batu will have to deal with enemies both inside and outside. Oliver asks the silver-haired one to postpone the wedding. However, this proposal is immediately stopped by His Majesty, who reminds who is the Emperor in this state. The man says that he understands the Chancellor's concerns, but the noise caused by the choice of the Empress will be in any case. The aristocrats will demand even more from the ruler, so this time he wants to do everything right. Bath, he as a ruler and a man, does not want to hesitate here. Oliver realizes that His Majesty has already decided everything for himself. The Chancellor bows to the silver-haired man, saying that he will do as the Emperor wishes. A subject enters the room, reporting that the envoys who arrived from Turan yesterday are awaiting an audience. The Duke warns Bath that the messenger introduced himself as Prince Wilson. Prince Turan enters the throne room and greets the Emperor. The silver-haired one asks His Highness what business he came all this way for. The man says he came for the annual tribute discussion and wanted to know how his sister was doing. The Emperor grins at the prince, saying that in the last 10 years he has never been interested in the princess. The black-haired man smiles and says that this is just gossip, and, in fact, he was worried that Jewel might be uncomfortable here. Bath informs His Highness that the decision has been made to expel the princess from the estate. To this news, Wilson congratulates His Majesty on his recent engagement. The man with feigned uncertainty says that the silver-haired bride is the daughter of a baron. The Emperor shudders at these words. Seeing that Bath is starting to lose his temper, Oliver tries to calm him down. The black-haired man continues and mockingly wishes the man a happy and very long family life. This concludes the audience with the ambassadors of Turan. The Emperor looks for a very long time at the door from which Prince Wilson came out. In the silver-haired man's thoughts, the scene with the burning city replays again and again. And the black-haired man watches this with a cruel smile on his face. A worried room from side to side. The door to the room opens sharply, causing the girl to flinch. The princess runs up to her brother, asking if the Emperor has spoken about her. Wilson glares at Princess Turan, saying that he did not give permission to speak to him. The girl immediately apologizes to the prince for her mistake. The black-haired one checks with his sister whether the girl to whom Bath is engaged is the daughter of Baron Zicalian, as she said. Having received a positive answer, the man remembers the serious face of the Emperor at the moment when Wilson spoke about Penelope. The prince asks Jewel who is considered the most important among the aristocrats. The princess replies that the Marquis of Genia is considered to be in charge, but in fact it is Count Baemon. The black-haired man asks his sister to follow that girl and tell her that he would like to meet her. Dropping a chess piece, Wilson grins ominously, anticipating how the Emperor's face will contort when he loses what he holds dear. After a while, the man rummages through his trouser pockets and remembers that there is something in them. In the black-haired man's palm lies a small candy that he received from a fair-haired girl. The prince puts the sweet in his mouth, but immediately spits it out due to the strange taste. In the man's thoughts, the image of that stranger pops up who says that the main thing in life is to eat deliciously. Wilson unwraps the new candy and sheepishly begins to chew it, noting that it doesn't taste the best. The Zakalian family members, Ruia and the Emperor, gathered together in the Zakalian estate's dining room. Bat thanks the main character's parents for such an unexpected invitation. Penelope looks at her friend carefully, wondering why she is now eating with them. Pepe again remembers that very night on the tower and realizes that now she is ashamed to look into Barta's face. However, despite this, after a moment, the heroes' gazes meet each other. The tenderness that can be seen in the Emperor's eyes makes the fair-haired girl even more embarrassed. Penelope's father thanks His Majesty for accepting their invitation. Silverhead smiles widely, saying that everything he tried turned out to be very tasty. The main character's mother smiles joyfully after hearing her daughter's groom's words. The woman serves the Emperor a huge plate of food, praising the skill of their cook, especially the taste of the asparagus. The owner of the estate suppresses such agitated behavior, asking his wife to behave more restrained. The woman laughs awkwardly and says that it's time for her to stop addressing Barth the way she usually treats her family. His Majesty asks in disbelief if the Zakalians consider him part of their family. The main character's mother happily says that since the silver-haired man is marrying Pepe, they are now a family. Penelope drops her food after hearing that her parents have already decided everything for her. The blonde tries to refute her mother's words, but the Emperor interrupts her. Bat happily says that he now loves asparagus very much, after which he calls his fiancée's mother Mom. After these words, the owner of the estate invites His Majesty to try the rest of the dishes, and Ferian suggests calling Bat his brother-in-law. Sensing that she feels uncomfortable here, the blonde decides to finish her meal. The girl justifies her departure by saying that it is time to feed Mary. Sitting on the bed with a puppy on her lap, the heroine complains that her family decided to accept Barth into the family without asking her. The Baron's daughter reflects that every time she sees His Majesty, she feels regret and a desire to be with him. Penelope's thoughts flash back to a scene where a trembling girl sits on the floor, trying to protect herself from danger. The girl's eyes reflect all the horror of the memories. Pepe calms down and begins to pet the puppy. The heroine thinks that it's easy to arrange a wedding, but you never know when a person will change. The blonde feels something tighten in her chest at the thought that His Majesty will ever change. Suddenly, the girl jumps to her feet and decisively says that she is going to live her life like a golden lady. At the moment when Pepe shouts that she is a free woman, the Emperor enters the room. The man awkwardly apologizes to the heroine, saying that the door was slightly open. The Baron's daughter allows the silver-haired man to come in, but at that moment she thinks that every time she shows him God knows what. Bat glances around the room, realizing that right now he is in the girl's bedroom. Noticing the man's stupor, Pepe asks him if everything is okay. The Emperor's cheeks turn red, and he says that he simply thought he was in his beloved's room. These words make Penelope's face look the same as the silver-haired one, but she replies that it's just a room. Barth does not agree with the blonde's words, since this is the place where his beloved falls asleep and wakes up every day. The distance between the heroes is decreasing every second. Lovers close their eyes, wanting to give each other an unforgettable experience. The romantic atmosphere is interrupted by the sudden barking of a puppy. Penelope approaches Mary and picks her up, trying to calm her down. The puppy looks at the Emperor and grins triumphantly. The blonde woman takes the dog outside the room, asking her to play outside. His Majesty asks Pepe where this puppy came from, to which she replies that the animal accidentally wandered into their estate. Leaving talk about the puppy, the man asks the heroine to give him some time. Bat extends his hand to Penelope and says he wants to show her something. Through the portal, the heroes enter the palace of His Majesty. The blonde girl looks carefully at the hanging portrait of the Barta family. The girl peers at the young emperor and is touched by his innocent appearance. Barth attracts attention by showing which room they need to go to. When the doors open, the main character sees an incredibly beautiful wedding dress in front of her. Silver-haired says that this dress belonged to his mother. The emperor pulls the blonde girl towards him and asks her to wear it to their wedding. One day, Bath heard from his mother that among all the nobles she received the most love, but was deeply saddened by the fact that she was forced to leave the young emperor. Penelope looks at her lover in surprise, not understanding why he wants to give her his mother's dress. His Majesty says that there is no need to rush Pepe and that she should think things over first. The main character clearly understands that the emperor values this thing very much. The blonde realizes that this shows how much the man values her. Looking at the time, Bat realizes that a lot of time has passed and it's time for them to leave. Instead of following the silver-haired man, Penelope pulls him by the hem of his clothes, asking him to stay together a little longer. The heroes go out into the street, and the setting sun is already visible in the sky. Penelope looks around to make sure no one is nearby. The girl turns to the emperor, asking him to listen to her carefully. The main character admits to His Majesty that she remembers her past life. At this, the man just looks at his beloved with bewilderment. Then the emperor asks Pepe since when she remembers everything, to which the baron's daughter says that this happened at the age of 7, when she fell from a tree. Penelope tells the ruler that in a past life she lived in a war-torn country where everyone lived in poverty. At a young age, the heroine was married to an adult man who abused her. From the memories of her ex-husband, the girl's body begins to tremble with fear. Bat puts his hand on Pepe to support and calm him down. Realizing that they trust her, the blonde continues, saying that the man later died at sea. After that, the girl lived to the fullest to raise her children, but because people treated her badly, she became angry. As a result, the main character was abandoned by her children, so she was left alone. Penelope says that after remembering her past life, she cried for a couple of days. The emperor says with concern that it must have been difficult to realize this as a child. The blonde confirms the man's words, but says that she is happy that this happened. Pepe happily says that she never dreamed of being born into a rich family, and even in such a beautiful country. Initially, the heroine wanted to live a happy life, to have a relationship, but she couldn't do it. The baron's daughter says that, after thinking it over, she realized that now she is not ready to get married again. Pepe makes a cute pose and asks the emperor to let her go, as he is going to live luxuriously alone. After her story, the girl wonders why the ruler still hasn't said that she's crazy and hasn't run away. Without saying anything, the man hugs his beloved tightly. The silver-haired one asks the fair-haired one not to push him away, because he doesn't even have thoughts of letting her go. Bat admits that he loves Pepe completely. Tears appear in the heroine's eyes as the emperor touched those places deep in her soul that she did not know about. In response, Penelope tenderly hugs His Majesty, thinking that if he continues, she will definitely fall in love with him. When night falls, Bath offers to accompany the main character, but is refused. The fair-haired one says that if she returns with the silver-haired one, then there will be real chaos in the house. Realizing that he cannot convince the girl, the emperor kisses her goodbye on the cheek. This unexpected action causes Penelope's face to turn bright red. While the heroine is walking home, she reflects that after telling her secret, she felt much better. However, the joy disappears when in the distance the girl sees a house engulfed in fire. Realizing that this is the Zekalian estate, the blonde takes off. When Penelope runs to the gate, she hears her brother say that their mother has not yet left the building. The heroine approaches Ferian and asks what happened, to which he joyfully exclaims that his sister is safe. The trembling maid says that when they were at the exit, Mistress Zekalian said that she had to take something from the estate, so they went without her. Blonde worriedly asks the maid how long it has been since her mother returned to the building. After hearing that this happened 5 minutes ago, Penelope decides to try and get Ms. Zekalian out. Ferian is about to do the same and is about to inform his sister of his intention, but at that moment she pours water on herself. The baron's daughter runs inside the estate, covering her nose with a handkerchief, and asks her brother to put out the fire. Walking a little further through the building, Pepe hears someone coughing nearby. When the heroine turns in that direction, she sees that her mother is lying there. The blonde lifts the woman up and begins to bring her to her senses. Pepe ties a scarf over his mother's face so that she will no longer breathe smoke. The main character lifts Ms. Zakalian to her feet, intending to quickly leave the building before the exit is blocked. Penelope throws open the window and passes her mother through it. Ferian offers his hand to his sister so that she can quickly get out of the burning building. The blonde is about to lean on her brother's hand, but suddenly hears a crash and raises her head up. Burning beams fall from the ceiling in the room where the girl is. A porcelain cup breaks with a loud sound in His Majesty's study. At this moment, only one thought flashes through the Emperor's head about Penelope. The ruler gives the order to the bird to show him the fair-haired one. A bird with soft blue plumage immediately flaps its wing, showing Penelope in danger. The blonde was able to veer away from the rubble and is now walking through the estate to find another way out. The Baron's daughter reaches the second window and is about to open it, but gets burned on the hot handle. The girl sinks to the floor, unable to move on. Penelope sadly thinks that her death will not be in vain. Tears appear in the blonde's eyes from the realization that she is not ready to die right now. The image of a silver-haired man pops up in the heroine's thoughts. Closing her eyes, Pepe thinks that if she dies, then Bat will be left alone again. Feeling something, Penelope opens her eyes and sees someone's silhouette in the distance, thinking that it is the Dark Reaper who has come for her. However, the heroine's consciousness becomes cloudy and she loses consciousness. The Emperor uses magic to protect the girl from the fire. Thanks to the ruler's ice magic, all the fire in the estate finally goes out. Barth picks up the Barona's daughter and soothingly tells her that she can now be calm. The man remembers Wilson and thinks that it was he who did this to the blonde. The head of the aristocracy, Count Bayman, says in disbelief that the Prince of Turan decided to commit arson. The black-haired man grins and says that he expected a lot from the head, but is surprised that he only cares about arson. Count Bayman reports that they had an agreement with His Majesty on peaceful coexistence, and this is a direct declaration of war. To this, Wilson threateningly says that the head cannot treat the Crown Prince of the state of Turan like that. The black-haired man approaches the man and tells him that the Emperor was secretly collaborating with Turan. When Count Bayman begins to leave, His Highness suggests that he quietly begin to create an alliance if he does not want to start a war. After this, the black-haired man gives the order to prepare a carriage for him. The prince reflects that Barth definitely went to save the blonde, which shows how dear she is to him. The man grins and says that he is not going to just let go of the Emperor's weak point, which he has been looking for many years. His Highness decides at all costs to cause the silver-haired man the same pain that he caused him. The main character's close people gathered in her bedroom, worried about the girl's condition. The doctor tells the Emperor that all of Penelope's vital signs are normal, so she is not in danger. Now they just have to wait patiently for Pepe to wake up. Ferian excitedly asks the doctor how long it will take for his sister to wake up. The man regretfully says that he does not know this, since this can happen either in a couple of days or after a month. From such news, the mother of the main character loses consciousness. Ferian and his father take the woman to the bedroom so she can recover from the shock. Left alone with his sleeping beloved, Bat looks at her with sadness in his eyes. The Emperor apologizes to the girl for letting her go when he should have followed her. The man reflects that even though I feel enormous guilt and self-loathing, he cannot let Penelope go. Silverhaired tells Pepe that he will wait for her even after decades. The main character finds herself on the seashore, and an incredibly beautiful sunset spreads out in front of her. The blonde girl looks in surprise at the place where she ended up in an unknown way. Penelope looks around and remembers the last time she was in a burning house. Suddenly, the girl realizes with horror that she is most likely dead. The Baron's daughter takes the stone in her hand and does not understand what this object is doing on the beach in the afterlife. The blonde woman with sadness in her voice says that she planned to live quietly and retire. After this, the heroine laughs because she still lived well, although not for so long. However, then tears appear in Penelope's eyes. Not far from her, Pepe hears a sound and thinks that there is someone else here besides her. Seeing who is standing next to her, the blonde girl jumps up in fear. Her ghost from a past life looks at the heroine emotionlessly. Seeing Penelope, the ghost sighs in disappointment. The girl irritably says that she wanted to continue enjoying this view, and the blonde one prevented her by doing something wrong. Pepe indignantly asks what she did. The fair-haired woman explains that she is unhappy that the Baron's daughter lived short and in hunger. Penelope disagrees with this, saying that although she died absurdly, she lived a decent life. The girl grins, because there is nothing worthy in the fact that they always die of hunger. The ghost says that the heroine shows that she regrets something. The fair-haired girl points to a handkerchief specially laid out earlier for the fair-haired one. The girl offers to sit down and tell her what is eating Penelope. Ferian and his father stand next to Lady Zakalian's bed. The fair-haired man anxiously tells his mother that she has not eaten or drunk for 4 days. An exhausted woman blames herself for what happened to her daughter. The man reassures his wife, saying that it is not her fault, but the woman still continues to curse herself. Ferian's hands begin to tremble with anger because he cannot do anything at a time when his loved ones are feeling bad. Ruby enters Ms. Zakalian's room. The red-haired woman smiles friendly at the woman and says that she brought food. The main character's mother tries to refuse the offer, but stops short when she sees the radiant smile of Count Bayman's daughter. The girl says that she specifically asked the chefs to make Zakalian's favorite dish. Ferion supports Ruia, reminding her mother that Pepe always said that food is the most important thing in life. The owner of the estate tells his wife that if their daughter saw her in such a state, she would be in great pain. Although reluctantly, Mrs. Zakalian agrees with her loved ones. Ruby informs those present that she will bring everything now, to which Ferion offers to help the girl. In the kitchen, the heroes work together to serve hot food for Mrs. Zakalian. The fair-haired one apologizes to the red-haired one for the inconvenience caused since their courtiers are now on vacation. Ruby says it's okay because the Ori will just take what's already cooked. Ferion once again apologizes to the Count's daughter, but this time for the fact that she has to worry about his family. Red Hair says that the Zakalian family is like family to her, so she's happy to do this. Ruia reminds her that she is Pepe's friend and wants to help her, so the girl doesn't need an apology. The Count's daughter asks Ferion to rest while she takes the food to his mother. The Baron's son sheepishly thanks the red-haired woman for helping them. As Ruby leaves, the blonde remembers that it's been 5 years since they first met. Ferion thinks that Ruia comes from the Honourable Bayman family, and he only dares to touch her feet. The young man begins to worry, because if his sister takes the title, then his goal may be achieved. The blonde one grabs his head, reproaching himself for such thoughts. In the window, the Baron's son notices the Emperor along with his assistant. Bat asks the Chancellor what he managed to find out. Ferion understands that His Majesty and the Duke will now have some important conversation, so it's time for him to leave. However, thoughts of leaving disappear when the blonde hears that Oliver knows who is behind the arson. The young man hides next to the window, wanting to find out who did this to his family. When the Chancellor reveals that Count Bayman is the instigator of the fire, Ferion's face reflects only shock and incomprehension. The blonde man clenches his fists, still not believing that this man turned out to be Rubia's father. The young man decides to go to the Emperor to find out everything. Ferion, his eyes burning with fury, asks His Majesty and the Duke if what they just said is true. Oliver responds positively, saying that the intelligence results so far are as follows. The blonde man turns away, gritting his teeth tightly in anger. The young man walks through the estate in the direction where the red-haired woman is now. Having almost reached his goal, Ferion wonders what to do next, since Ruia is not involved in this. Penelope's friend comes along and tells the Baron's son that he should have rested longer. Feeling the growing anger inside, the blonde asks the girl not to touch him now. Thinking that Ferion is still uncomfortable with her help, Ruia reiterates that it is not difficult for her to take care of his mother. The young man does not listen to the red-haired girl and shouts at her to leave. Not expecting such a reaction, the girl shudders. Ferion warns Ruby not to come to their house again, as he will deal with his family's problems himself. Count Bayman's daughter screams that he doesn't want to do this, and doesn't understand why the fair-haired man began to behave so aggressively. To this, the Baron's son answers the girl in a cold tone that this does not concern her. Ruia says that 5 years ago the young man also, without saying a word, made up a lot of things for himself. The red-haired woman does not understand why Farion recently thanked and hoped for her help, but now sets boundaries. Unable to contain his anger, the Baron's son suggests that the girl ask her father about this. Blonde says to ask Count Bayman who did all this to their house and Penelope. Ruia nervously says that Farion is going overboard by linking the arson to her father. The young man's parents come out into the corridor, asking their son whether Count Bayman really did this to them. After this, the eyes of the members of the Zekalian family turn to the red-haired one. Unable to bear it, Ruia decides to leave the estate. Sitting on the seashore, Penelope reflects that after a conversation with her past, she came to the conclusion that this place is not another world. The girl agrees with her thoughts, because if this were the afterlife, then she and her ghost could not be here at the same time. The fair-haired girl asks Pepe if she is an unmarried, beautiful girl from an honorable family who liked the tall, handsome man. Hearing a positive answer, the ghost says that the fair-haired woman won the lottery and she had to get married right away. Penelope indignantly asks herself whether she could get married under such conditions. The ghost laughs, calling the heroine's excuses ridiculous and ridiculous. The Baron's daughter jumps up and says with offense that it was because of the fair-haired woman that her life turned into a nightmare. The fair-haired girl looks at herself in bewilderment, asking why she is to blame for the fact that the fair-haired one could not live this life well. Penelope has tears in her eyes and says that no matter how hard she tries, she can't forget what they went through. The ghost tells the Baron's daughter that she has not lived as worthless as Pepe thinks. The girl proudly declares that she was very hardworking and even successfully married her youngest daughter. The fair-haired woman admits that she regretted only one thing before her death. The ghost of the main character says that the eldest child, having received a salary, bought her red underwear, which the old woman had to wear, so it lay in the closet all her life. The fair-haired girl confidently tells Penelope to grab her happiness with all her might. The ghost admits that she is really sorry that the heroine saw her past as a child. That is why the girl asks to forget about her and live a truly happy life. The fair-haired girl turns to the sea and says that their time is coming to an end. Penelope excitedly asks the ghost if she can really forget about her past. To this, the girl replies that it was already 100 years ago, so it is natural that they will forget about her. The main character thinks that she from the past is trying to hide her sadness, showing that everything is fine. After these thoughts, Pepe angrily shouts to the ghost that she is actually sick and gloomy. The fair-haired girl covers her ears from such a loud scream. The main character tells herself that she saw and knows how painful and difficult it was for her, so she cannot pretend that she forgot about everything. Tears begin to stream down the ghost's face, and she says that Pepe's life is already confusing. The girl shouts that without her, the blonde could have lived happily from the very beginning. The action moves 5 years ago to the chambers of Penelope Zekalian. The heroine is crying, pressing her knees to her face because she hit a man at the reception. Farion tries to reassure his sister, saying that the man was the first to tease her and she was not to blame for anything. The blonde man closes his eyes in anger and apologizes to the girl for not being with her at that moment. At this moment, Pepe thinks that if she didn't have those memories, she could be carefree like other ladies. Penelope agrees with her ghost, as she previously blamed her for not being able to live a normal life. The fair-haired girl frowns when she hears that all the troubles that happened to the heroine were due to the fact that she remembered everything. The Baron's daughter admits that she was often visited by thoughts that she would be better off living alone. After this, Pepe takes the ghost's hands in his own and says that she was wrong. Despite Penelope's character and behavior, she is still surrounded by people who are always happy to see her. The girl even has a man who, knowing her secret, confessed his love to her. The main character smiles and says that she is just a special lady who remembers her past life. The blonde warns the ghost not to even think about disappearing from her head. The fair-haired girl begins to laugh, saying that she never thought that she would be asked to stay. A gentle smile appears on the girl's face, and she sincerely thanks Penelope. After this, the ghost enters the water, asking to follow her. Seeing the hesitant look of the Baron's daughter, the fair-haired woman says that she definitely won't die from this. When Pepe touches the water, everything that previously surrounded her turns into a clearing with flowers. The ghost of the past extends his hand to Penelope and tells her that they need to hurry to the people she loves. The next moment, the Baron's daughter suddenly opens her eyes, finding herself in her bed. The eyes of the heroine's brother and parents, filled with excitement, look at her carefully. Seeing that their loved one has woken up, the Zekalian family begins to cry with happiness. His Majesty the Emperor runs into the girls' chambers. Finding himself next to Pepe, the man immediately hugs his beloved tightly. Bat, in a trembling voice, thanks Penelope for returning to them. In response, the blonde girl hugs the Emperor and joyfully says that she is finally home. At the same time, a lady in a night-colored dress arrives at the estate. After meeting Penelope, His Majesty returns to his palace using the portal. The man exhales when he finally realizes that his lover has woken up. Barth thinks about Count Bayman, remembering that during the meeting he had no disagreements with him. The Emperor understands that the red-haired man is absolutely not a radical person, so he did not dare to do this alone. Walking down the corridor, Barth sees Wilson ahead, the real instigator of the incident. The black-haired man notices the ruler of the state of Labat and bows before him. The man asks His Majesty why he is so concerned that his face has become very drawn since the last meeting. The silver-haired man passes by the prince, clarifying since when he began to be interested in his well-being. To this, Wilson recalls the unfortunate incident that happened to the Emperor's bride. At the same second, compressed air envelops the prince's hands, causing him pain. It was Bat who used his magic to point the black-haired man to his place. The man reminds His Highness that from the moment he sets foot on the soil of Labat, his life is in the hands of the Emperor. From these words, Wilson begins to tremble with anger. At the same moment, the black-haired man realizes that his entire body is bound by an invisible chain. The Emperor continues on his way, telling the prince that he left him alive so that he would receive appropriate punishment for his past deeds. Barth warns Wilson that he will no longer be able to hide behind others and avoid responsibility. After this, the ruler releases the black-haired man and he falls to the ground. Silver-haired warns His Highness that if he touches his bride again, next time he will expose his neck. The man then leaves, leaving Wilson alone. After the warning from the Emperor, only a crazy grin can be seen on the prince's face. The black-haired man anticipates what the face of the ruler of Labat will look like when he loses what is most precious to him. Penelope exhales happily after eating a hearty meal after a long sleep. Ferian asks her sister if she was really only unconscious for 5 days, since she has such a good appetite. Hearing Pepe's indignant muttering, the young man laughs and invites the girl to eat another portion a little later. The blonde girl hesitantly asks her brother what happened to her because it seemed that she died. The Baron's son tells Penelope that the Emperor saved her. Ferian says that they were all very frightened when the ruler threw himself into the fire as soon as he appeared. The blonde man then vehemently tells his sister what an amazing magician His Majesty is. The main character's soul becomes warm from the realization that the man she saw then in the fire turned out to be the silver-haired one. The girl begins to smile even wider when she realizes that Bat always comes to her aid. Penelope wonders if there will be anyone else willing to do something like this for her. While pouring water, Ferian says that although His Majesty had been an outstanding person before, at that moment even he was ready to fall in love with him. The fair-haired man says that the Emperor provided their family with a place to live and, despite the busyness, came every day to visit Pepe. The young asks his sister to be more kind to His Majesty and stop pushing him away. The main character blushes, embarrassedly asking when she pushed away the ruler of Labat. The girl turns away from her brother, saying that she was already going to change her attitude towards Barth. Ferian perks up after hearing Penelope's words. The blonde asks her brother to contact Ruia, as she is clearly very worried about her well-being. Hearing Pepe's request, the Baron's son shudders. Ferian turns away from his sister and tells her that the red-haired woman will not come. Penelope grins, goading her brother about how he's going to avoid her friend again. The blonde man slams his fists on the serving table, shouting that that's not the point. Ferian tells Pepe that the instigator of that fire is Count Baimon. The heroine cannot believe what she heard because she does not understand why Ruby's father would do this. At this moment, some noise is heard in the corridor. The blonde man leaves the room to find out the source of the sound and changes his facial expression from what he sees. The girl with burgundy gloves exhales and puts down her last suitcase. Ruia smiles widely and happily says that she has finally arrived. Ferian in response also smiles at the girl because in spite of everything, he is very glad to see her again. However, the young man immediately stops short and says that Count Baimon's people cannot come here. After the blonde's statement, Ruia declares that she no longer bears that last name. The red-haired girl happily informs Ferian that she has left home. The Baron's son freezes in shock at what he hears, not knowing how to respond to this. The action moves a few hours ago to the house of Count Baimon. Ruby walks into her father's office, immediately asking if he did it. The man clarifies what his daughter is talking about. The red-haired girl shouts in anger that she is talking about the fire in Baron Zakalian's house. Count Baimon calmly continues to smoke his pipe, asking his daughter who she learned about it from. Ruia realizes with horror that her father does not deny her words. The girl approaches the Count's desk and asks her father if he did this because she likes Ferian. The man comes to the window, saying that this is not the problem. The Count asks to take this as a warning from the aristocrats. Ruby tries to reach out to her father, saying that people almost died, and this was the house of her beloved man. The girl's father says that this is a great time to cut ties with the Zakalian family and people who do not suit their status. Ruia tells her father that Pepe is still unconscious, to which he states that it would be better if she did not wake up. The red-haired girl can't believe that the Count could really, so to speak. Count Baimon grabs his daughter by the shoulders, instilling in her that this is a matter of survival. The man says that for the sake of their family and the empire, Penelope should never become empress. Ruby's father warns his daughter that if the blonde takes this place, a new war may begin. The Count reports that he has already asked the Marquise Genia to choose a groom for Ruia, and her opinion is not taken into account. The red-haired girl's hands begin to tremble with anger towards her father. The girl says that she used to respect the man, but what he is doing is too much. Ruia says that she will no longer allow people close to her to be hurt, so from today on, she is giving up the name Baimon. The red-haired woman curtsies and says goodbye to her father. Ruby hugs Penelope tightly, happy that her friend is finally awake. The girl, without stopping, asks the blonde about her condition, while Pepe unsuccessfully tries to calm her down. The main character says that after a long sleep, she feels even healthier than before. The blonde's parents ask Ruia if she really gave up the name of her house. With tears in her eyes, the red-haired woman says that her father greatly disappointed her with his action.
Although the girl was not involved in that incident, she still apologizes for her father.
Ruby, with hope in her eyes, asks the Zakalian family to make her their adopted daughter. Pepe looks at his friend in bewilderment, not at all expecting such a request from her. Ferian indignantly asks the red-haired girl if she really wants them to become brother and sister. Ruia tells the young man that he doesn't want to marry her anyway, so there shouldn't be a problem. The fair-haired man wants to object to this, but the Baron interrupts him, shaking his head negatively. Red-haired says that if she is with them, then her father will not be able to harm them. Ruby lowers her head, asking Pepe's parents to consider her proposal. The main character asks her friend to raise her head and tries to cheer her up, saying that she is not to blame for anything. Mrs. Zakalian says that Ruia can stay with them as long as she wants, but they ask her not to make such hasty decisions. The red-haired girl's heart begins to dance, and tears appear in her eyes again. When the girls enter the bedroom, Pepe sighs, saying that Ferion still can't come to his senses. The heroine informs her friend that the inconvenience will not be endured for long, since the servants will return very soon. Noticing the red-haired girl's distant look, Penelope asks if she's okay. Ruia raises her confident gaze, telling the blonde that she has a story to tell. The girl tells her friend that this fire incident was organized by the aristocrats to prevent her wedding with His Majesty. Ruby warns the blonde that if their wedding takes place, then, as she thinks, a new war may begin. Now Penelope realizes that the fire occurred because of the status of Empress, which she so much does not want. Tears begin to well up in the heroine's eyes, since she never wanted to rule, and these thoughts, on the contrary, weighed on her. Pepe angrily shouts that her family shouldn't have to suffer so much because of their unwanted status. Ruia asks her friend to come to her senses, because in such a situation you need to be more courageous. The blonde one asks the girl blankly what she can do. The red-haired woman puts her hands on Penelope's shoulders and says in a serious tone that she needs to become an empress. Pepe hesitantly says that this status will make the situation even more dangerous, to which Ruia says that is what they need. The Count's former daughter says that His Majesty will not be able to protect her from all dangers. Ruby says that if the blonde wants to protect herself and her family, then she must become an empress and take everything into her own hands. The redhead says understandingly that this is a really difficult decision, but she doesn't have much time to think about it. Ruia confidently says that Penelope will have to make a choice. In the evening, Ferion is watching from the balcony leading to the bedroom of the Count's former daughter. Suddenly, the girl herself appears on the balcony, causing the blonde man to abruptly turn away from him. After some time, the door closes and the Baron's son finally exhales. Scratching the back of his head, Ferion berates himself for still not apologizing to Ruia. Suddenly, a voice calls the young man, addressing him by name. The red-haired woman with reddened cheeks and innocent eyes looks at Ferion carefully. Without saying anything, the blonde tisks and turns away from the girl. Penelope tosses and turns in her bed, wrapped in a blanket. After a sleepless night, bruises appear clearly under the eyes. The girl thought all night about Ruia's words regarding the status of the Empress. Pepe is not sure that she can live up to the status of an Empress, and does not know whether she truly loves His Majesty. The blonde purses her lips tightly, wondering if it would be better if she ended everything now. Penelope remembers all the happy moments with Bath, and finally admits to herself that she wants to be close to him. The heroine wants to become a support for this lonely and struggling person. The blonde one hits the bed out of confusion as to what she should do. In the girl's thoughts, the words of the ghost of the past emerge, who told Penelope to grab a happy chance. The Baron's daughter slaps herself hard on the cheeks, after which her eyes fill with determination. Oliver comes into His Majesty's office to report that a guest has come to see him. The Emperor asks who came at such an early hour, to which the Chancellor grins and says that he will find out when he meets. The ruler of Labat leaves the room and flinches when he sees who has decided to visit him. Penelope, dressed in a baby blue dress, wishes Bath good morning. Already sitting in the living room, the fair-haired girl apologizes for coming so early and distracting her from some business. Silver-haired is interested in the girl's health, recommending that she rest a little more, to which she says that she has been resting for a long time. After this, the main character in a serious tone declares to the ruler of Labat that she has something to tell him. Penelope smiles brightly and says that she heard that it was Bath who saved her from the fire. The blonde bows to His Majesty, thanking him for his help. Bat smiles sweetly and says that he should thank Pepe for bringing her back to consciousness. The heroine admits that she actually knows who the instigator of this incident is. The Baron's daughter clenches her fingers into fists and explains that the arson was organized by people who oppose her becoming Empress. Bat apologizes to the girl, saying that it was his mistake since he should have been more attentive and protected her. Penelope says that she was really scared because such a high status and a wedding are already so difficult for her, and then there is a threat to the lives of her family members. Bat understands that the blonde almost lost her life, so asking her to stay with him would be too selfish. Suddenly, the main character takes the man's hand and confidently says that she agrees to become an empress. The emperor looks at the baron's daughter in amazement and asks her in the same tone about the reason why she made this decision. The girl smiles sweetly and says that she was just angry. Penelope ruffles her hair and explains that the thought of her family now having to live on the run makes her very angry. The blonde girl gets angry and shouts that those unscrupulous people who set fire to their house are now living carefree while her family leads such a lifestyle. Pepe declares that she will make those who brought so much suffering to her family cry tears of blood. Bat smiles and asks the blonde if she decided to marry him to protect her family. When asked by the emperor, Penelope nods positively and says that His Majesty is also a member of her family. The heroine admits that she still doesn't understand whether this is love. However, the girl sincerely wants to become support for the ruler of Labat. Bath smiles, thinking that even though he accepts the marriage proposal, Pepe doesn't know how he feels. The emperor likes that despite everything, Penelope remains a very honest person. His Majesty takes the main character's hands in his and sincerely thanks her for agreeing. Jewel screams hysterically at her minion over the news that Lady Zicalian visited the ruler of Labat this morning. The girl begins to nervously walk around the room because she thought that Penelope was still unconscious. Princess Tirana asks the servants what the emperor and the baron's daughter were talking about, but she is told that none of the servants remained during that conversation. Jewel angrily throws a cup at the man, calling him useless. The servant immediately leaves the room, and meanwhile the black-haired woman is furiously thinking that Penelope should have burned in that fire. The girl clenches her teeth and says through them that if this continues, then His Majesty will actually marry the baron's daughter. The next second, the entire service that was on the table next to Jewel flies to the floor. Hearing a noise from his sister's room, Wilson decides to check what's going on there. The girl runs up to her brother and tells him that the blonde has regained consciousness. Jewel says that the emperor cannot marry the heroine, since she waited for him for 10 years and suffered many humiliations as a hostage. However, Prince Turan reassures his sister, saying that this is just a wedding, about which there is no need to make unnecessary fuss. The black-haired woman begins to object to her brother, but when she sees his irritated, blood-scarlet eyes, she immediately falls silent. Wilson leans over to his sister and tells her through clenched teeth that he is already tired of enduring her eternal whining. The man turns away from the princess and says that he hopes the emperor has a safe wedding. Jewel asks his brother what he means.
The black-haired dame sits down on a chair and says that the happier the ruler of Labat becomes, the more meaning their surprise will make.
Wilson tells the princess that after this she can pick up Bath and have fun with him as she wants. Hearing the prince's words, the girl joyfully says that her brother is the best. After some time, the burned house of the Zicalian family was rebuilt thanks to His Majesty. At dinner, the mother of the main character asks the emperor how she can thank him for everything he has done for them. Bath smiles widely at the woman, saying that he did what he had to do. The head of the family remembers that his daughter wanted to tell them something important. Penelope tells everyone the good news that she has decided to accept the marriage proposal. Tears appear in the mother's eyes as everything is finally starting to get better in their life. Everyone raises a glass to this beautiful day, the restored house and the future of their Penelope. The main character notices the emperor's burning eyes and realizes that he is in a very good mood. Mrs. Zicalian asks Bath why he liked her daughter. In surprise, the blonde girl chokes on her drink. The emperor replies that it is difficult for him to single out one thing, since he likes absolutely everything about her. Penelope abruptly stands up from her seat and says in a loud tone that it is time to feed the dog. Seeing the misunderstanding in the eyes of those around her, the girl explains that she is talking about Mary, their dog. Bat asks his beloved if we are talking about that white dog with a strange look. Pepe responds positively to this and then asks the family if they took Mary with them when they returned to their home. Ferian awkwardly scratches the back of his head and barely audibly and uncertainly says that the dog has run away somewhere. A moment later, a desperate cry from the blonde is heard in the estate. After a while, the main character comes to a flower shop where Mary greets her, joyfully wagging her tail at the entrance. The girl hugs her beloved pet tightly, apologizing for leaving her alone. Penelope asks what she can do for the girls who have been looking after Mary all this time, but they answer that they don't need anything since their sales have already increased. Suddenly, the puppy begins to whine, and Pepe begins to fear that something is hurting her. However, one of the store workers guesses that the pet wants to choose flowers for its owner. The main character is surprised by the girl's words, but she explains that Mary chose flowers that suited each guest. The puppy takes out a bright red rose from a vase and brings it to Penelope. The blonde woman thanks her pet for such a beautiful flower. The store employee offers to choose flowers to decorate the bouquet and suggests that guests usually choose gypsophila. The Baron's daughter's gaze stops at a beautiful, multi-petaled flower. The heroine remembers how she walked with her past self through the field where exactly these snow-white flowers grew. Penelope points to this plant and asks the girl to combine them with roses. The blonde woman comes out of the store with a beautiful bouquet and a puppy in a basket. Suddenly, not far from him, Pepe sees a large crowd of people next to some store. The Baron's daughter notices that the place is a bakery that sells her favorite garlic cream buns. However, you cannot bring animals to this bakery, but if the girl returns to the flower shop, all the buns will be sold out. The blonde sighs in disappointment, realizing that today she definitely won't try her favorite product. Suddenly, a familiar face passes next to the main character. The black-haired man also pays attention to the girl, remembering that she once gave him candy. Penelope asks the man if they have met before. Having received a positive answer, the Baron's daughter gives Wilson a basket with a puppy so that he can look after it. Pepe leaves the shocked man in a stupor, promising to buy him something too. Girls passing by are touched when they see a guy waiting for his beloved with a bouquet and a puppy. Noticing the curious glances of passers-by, Wilson immediately scares them away with his angry gaze. The black-haired man begins to get angry because he is being made a guard and already wants to throw flowers on the ground. However, the man's hand stops as he remembers the sweet expression on the girl's face, who asked him to help her. Prince Turan's cheeks turn red, and now Wilson realizes that because of that strange stranger, he ceases to recognize himself. Sometime later, Penelope returns with a large bag of baked goods. The man is already holding out the girls' things to give them, but the blonde woman walks past him, offering to go and eat in the park. Wilson looks furiously at the stranger, not understanding why she is so stubborn. However, without saying anything, the black-haired man still decides to follow the stranger. As the heroes sit down, Pepe offers to try her favorite garlic bread, saying it's to die for. Having heard something about death, the man looks at the bread with disgust, thinking that there is poison inside. Wilson refuses the offer, justifying it by saying that eating on the street is vulgar. The main character irritably shouts at the black-haired man to quickly take the bread, otherwise her hand will fall off. As a result, a product with garlic ends up in the prince's hands, and the fair-haired woman continues to sit carefree next to him, enjoying the taste of fresh bread. Wilson puts down a small piece of the product, surprised that such a stubborn girl exists in this world. Suddenly, the man freezes in amazement as he feels the crispy texture of the dough and the perfect balance of cream and garlic in his mouth. Noticing that a new acquaintance begins to gobble up bread with garlic on both cheeks, Penelope asks him about the taste of the product. Blushing a little, Wilson replies that he usually doesn't eat plebeian food, but since the fair-haired woman insists so much, this time he will condescend. The main character thinks that even though the man looks like a normal bachelor, it is still clear from him that something is tormenting his soul. Pepe begins to worry about the black-haired man's condition, so he hands him another bread with garlic. Having eaten, the heroine exhales joyfully, noting that eating outside always tastes best. The fair-haired woman pays attention to the thoughtful man and guesses that he might have gotten some hair in his food. However, Wilson replies that this is not the case, and he is simply surprised that the bread turned out to be really tasty. The black-haired man tells the girl that he tried all the delicacies of the world, but never thought that they were tasty. Penelope speculates that this attitude towards food could be due to her mood. Remembering the past, the Baron's daughter says that it happens that you are happy to share even an ordinary bean with someone. And if you are upset, no matter how you set the table, it will not taste good. Pepe smiles and says that although it is important what you eat, it is much more important to eat in a good mood. The man's heart skips a beat from the realization that he feels joy when he is next to this stranger. Wilson wants to say something to the blonde, but is interrupted by the barking of a puppy. Realizing that Mary has become bored, Penelope suggests returning home. The Baron's daughter thanks her new acquaintance for today and asks him to be careful on the road. Wilson stops the girl, holding out a bag of baked goods. Pepe stops him, saying that this is a gift for his help. When the blonde one starts to leave, the black-haired one stops the girl again to ask her name. Prince Turan's cheeks turn bright red when Penelope tells him her name. Finally, the Baron's daughter asks the man to eat well and not say that he has no appetite. After his words, Pepe smiles because he feels like he is mentoring his grandson. Wilson looks inside the bag and sees that all the products in it are sweet. The prince thinks that although he doesn't like Bath, like the country he rules, he's still not so bad. The main character enters the Zekalian estate, all disheveled and tired. The blonde will notice that the house is unusually quiet and deserted. Suddenly the girl hears stomping and sees that it is her brother quickly descending the stairs. The young man runs up to his sister and anxiously says that something bad has happened to Ruia. Penelope tries to find out from Ferian what is happening, but he says that they don't have time to explain. As she climbs the stairs, the Baron's daughter begins to have thoughts that the aristocrats have gotten to the red-haired one. The heroine's brother opens the door for her and she runs inside the room. However, instead of something bad, Penelope sees confetti and joyful Mrs. Zekalian and Ruia in front of her. The shocked girl asks her friend what is going on, to which she receives the answer that they are throwing a bachelorette party for her. Now the fair-haired one understands that today she was specially sent from home to prepare everything. The main character's mother tells her daughter that the second floor is all theirs that day. Ruia sends Pepe to change into the clothes they had prepared in advance. A couple of minutes later, the girls raise their glasses to the happiness of the bride and this evening. At the bachelorette party, everyone is having fun, chatting and teaching the main character of this evening the technique of seduction. Late in the evening, mother and daughter sit down at the table, leaving the sleeping Ruia on the sofa. Mrs. Zekalian admits that she wanted to do something more solemn, to which the blonde one says that she is much more comfortable with the two of them than with a bunch of people she doesn't know. The woman sheds a tear, remembering how happy she was when Pepe woke up, and then it came to the wedding. The Baron's daughter finally decides to ask her mother what she was looking for in the burning house that day. Miss Zekalian rises from her seat and begins to rummage through a bag lying nearby. The woman takes out some jewelry, and Penelope recognizes it as a craft she made when she was little. The main character's mother says that this was the first thing the blonde did for her, so she couldn't lose him so easily.